All right, let's talk remakes for a second. Funny thing is, when I thought I was going to look into this, I really honestly expected to find way more uh, remakes than I actually found. What I actually found was the percentage of remakes in Hollywood has been falling over the past decade. In 2005, 17% of the top grossing films in Hollywood were remakes. So that's 2005. By 2014, only 5% of the top grossing films in Hollywood were remakes. Now, that doesn't speak to the amount of remakes that are being made. However, there are actually less remakes being made than we think there are. And there are reasons why we think it's more than it is. And here they are. First of all, I want to describe what a remake is versus a revival versus a reboot. A remake is the same story with new faces, so different actors. Magnificent Seven. A reboot is basically the exact opposite. Same actors, new storyline. Kind of Star Wars. And then a revival, usually used in television, is a continuation of a story with the same actors that have continued, but there's been a long break. So, X-Files, Twin Peaks, Roseanne. Um, so those are the different categories, first of all. But so here are the main reasons why remakes seem so much more prevalent than they are. The first reason and the main reason, intellectual property. So let's be real. A studio creates a franchise. They've invested money into this franchise. They've invested production dollars into this franchise. They've created something like Star Wars or Baywatch. Or why would they defer from that? They've created something that's been successful, that fans have identified with. You're asking someone to give 2 hours of their life in a movie theater, right? You're asking someone to pay a certain amount of money to go and see a movie. Why not use something that they've already identified with? Whether it's with a new actor or whether it's with the same actor and a new storyline. It's a risk mitigating, risk adverse strategy to use old storylines and offer them up. Because, again, we're human beings. We are basically, it's comforting to be in the realm of the familiar. So we're going to be more inclined to be, willing to spend money and spend 2 hours of our day on something that's familiar. The thing is, new actors with the same storylines, it's still familiar. And similar old actors with new storylines, but with the same actors, it's familiar and it's comforting. And we're more willing to engage in that. The second thing is, there's a new way of branding. And this is the one thing we don't realize, is that remakes, reboots, revivals, they've been going on since the beginning of cinema. You don't think of George Clooney as Batman. We don't think of Pierce Brosnan even anymore as James Bond. James Bond is not considered reboots or remakes, but they kind of technically in a way are. They're sequel after sequel after sequel. Batman has been sequel after sequel. Danny DeVito was the freaking Penguin. I mean, come on. So how we do it now is we advertise things as reboots, and it ties into my point earlier of intellectual property, of that people actually want to go and see reboots because they're more familiar with them. So what used to be a reboot back in the day, I mean, Ocean's 11 is a remake. Was it advertised as that? No, because people at that time didn't want to see remakes. Now people do more so. So it kind of skews our interpretation of what's a remake and what isn't. I think that's, a big point as well. And the thing is, Baywatch is the perfect example. The Rock, big time movie star, Baywatch, a familiar concept, but you know, it didn't really get the turnout that it didn't get the turnout that was expected from those two. So they're not even always successful. And then finally, the last point is TV revivals have been huge. Whether it's X-Files, whether it's Roseanne, whether it's Twin Peaks. So this is, again, using IP to connect it to intellectual property. Again, this is using intellectual property in order to already have a audience that you've created prior. And the big thing about that is you can get the old generation and the new generation. And once you get those demographics, you have a successful product right there. The one thing that we have to remember, though, is that they are not always successful. As I was just talking about, Baywatch, that only got about 27 million in its first 2 weeks, I think. First week, I could be incorrect, but The Rock's contract was more than 27 million. I guarantee you that. He's the highest paid actor for 2 years straight. 27 million in its first week or first 2 weeks. I hope it was first week for their sake. And then King Arthur, which cost 175 million to make, but that only garnered $34 million internationally. So that was it was not a success. So I'm going to talk real quick about, I'm going to give you guys a music recommendation. Ellie $, Les, came out with an EP the other day. It's called Lost in Japan. It's a 5-track EP. Every track is named after a specific area in Japan. It has really cool kind of Japanese vibes on the beats. He's getting back to that really like smooth, less rap, that really kind of New Orleans, Texas, like very, very, very cool.